The rain is coming down so hard it feels like the sky is crying. His driver holds an umbrella over him as he walks the familiar path to the Thorn family plot. And that's when he sees it. A figure hunched over, kneeling in the wet grass right next to his father's headstone. Julian stops walking. He signals his driver to stay back. At first, he thinks it's a prank. Maybe a journalist trying to get a reaction. Maybe a disgruntled former employee. But as he gets closer, he realizes the person is wearing a dirty green janitor's uniform. The kind you see in office buildings or train stations. And that person is crying. Not the quiet, dignified kind of crying. The ugly, messy, shaking kind. Shoulders heaving. Face buried in hands. Sobbing like their entire world just collapsed. Julian is confused. Then annoyed. Then strangely curious. He clears his throat. The figure looks up. It's an older man. Probably in his late 60s. Wrinkled face. Bloodshot eyes. Hands that look like they've scrubbed 1,000 floors. He's holding something in his lap. A small, worn-out photograph, faded from rain and age. Julian speaks first. His voice is cold. "Who are you, and why are you crying on my father's grave?" The old janitor wipes his nose with his sleeve. He doesn't look scared. He doesn't look impressed by the expensive suit or the Changding Tuka, the bodyguard-sized driver nearby. He just looks tired. Really, really tired. The old man says, "Your father? Is that what you call him?" Julian feels a flash of anger. Of course he's my father. This is the Thorn family plot. You need to leave. Now. But the old man doesn't move. Instead, he holds up the photograph. The rain is smearing it even more. But Julian can just make out two people in the picture. A young woman, maybe in her early 20s, with a bright smile. And a little boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old, sitting on her lap. The old man says her name was Elena, and that little boy was me. Julian frowns. He has no idea who Elena is. He's studied his family history. His father, Richard Thorn, was a ruthless businessman who built a shipping empire from nothing. He had one wife, Julian's mother, who died when Julian was 12. And he had one son, Julian himself. That was the official story. The clean story. The story that got printed in magazines and whispered at charity galas. But the old man shakes his head. Richard Thorn wasn't just your father. He was my father too. I'm your brother. The rain keeps falling. Julian doesn't say anything for a long time. His brain is trying to process the information, but it feels like someone poured concrete into the gears. Matteo says his mother, Elena, worked as a seamstress in a small town 300 miles from the city. Richard Thorn was passing through on a business trip. He was charming. He was married, but he didn't mention that. Elena was young and trusting. And when she found out she was pregnant, she thought Richard would do the right thing. He did not. He gave her some money and told her to disappear. He said if she ever told anyone, he would ruin her. And he meant it. Elena raised Matteo alone. She worked 3 jobs. She never remarried. She never stopped loving Richard, even though he had thrown her away like a broken toy. But she also never stopped being angry. She kept that photograph hidden in a drawer. She told Matteo, who his father was on his 10th birthday. She said, one day the truth will come out. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But the truth always finds its way to the surface. Matteo never tried to contact Richard. What was the point? The man was a billionaire. He had security, lawyers, and a reputation to protect. A poor kid from a small town with a faded photograph wasn't going to change anything. So Matteo grew up. He worked odd jobs. He got married for a few years, then divorced. He never had children. He never had money. By the time he was 60, he was living in a rented room and working as a janitor at a public library. But here's the thing that breaks your heart. Every year, on the anniversary of his mother's death, Matteo would take the bus to this cemetery, not to see Richard Thorne's grave. Richard wasn't even buried here yet at that point. Richard died only 15 years ago. No, Matteo came to visit his mother's grave. Elena died when Matteo was 32. She had saved up enough money to buy a small plot, not in the rich section, but in the older, forgotten part of the same cemetery. A part that doesn't get fresh flowers. A part where the headstones lean like tired old men. Julian asks the obvious question. Then why are you crying on my father's grave? You just said your mother is buried somewhere else. Matteo looks at him with eyes that have seen too much. He says, because tonight I found out that my mother's grave is being dug up. The cemetery is expanding the rich section. They're moving the old graves to a mass plot on the other side of the highway. No markers, no names. Just a big field with grass and a single stone that says, "Rest in peace." Matteo found a notice taped to a tree near his mother's grave 3 days ago. He tried to fight it. He went to the cemetery office. He showed them his ID. He showed them the photograph. They didn't care. They said the decision was made by the board of directors. And guess who sits on that board? Julian Thorne. Julian's face goes pale. He doesn't remember approving this expansion. But he also doesn't remember a lot of things. His company owns the cemetery. He paid someone to manage it. He never asked questions. Why would he? Matteo continues. He says, I don't want your money. I don't want your name. I just want my mother to rest in peace. But you took that away, just like your father took away her chance at a real life. So tonight I came here, to his grave, because I wanted him to see me cry. I wanted his ghost to know that even in death, his cruelty follows me. Julian doesn't respond with anger. He doesn't call security. He doesn't laugh or walk away. Instead, he does something completely unexpected. He takes off his expensive jacket, lays it over a nearby bench, and kneels down in the mud right next to Matteo. For the first time in 20 years, Julian looks at his father's headstone not with hate, but with something else. Something he can't name. He says, tell me everything. Tell me about Elena. Tell me about your life. Tell me what it was like to grow up without a father who had too much money and not enough heart. Matteo hesitates. Then he talks. He talks for 2 hours in the pouring rain. His driver holds the umbrella over both of them. Julian doesn't interrupt. He listens like a man who just realized he's been reading the wrong book his entire life. Matteo talks about the small apartment with the leaky roof. He talks about the Christmas when he was 7 and his mother made him a toy boat out of scrap wood because she couldn't afford anything else. He talks about the bullies at school who called him fatherless. He talks about the one time when he was 19, he stood outside Richard Thorne's office building for 3 hours, holding the photograph, trying to work up the courage to walk inside. He didn't. He turned around and took the bus home. and Julian listens. But something is happening inside him. Something that hasn't happened since he was a little boy, watching his own mother cry herself to sleep. He's feeling empathy. Real, painful, gut-wrenching empathy. Then Julian asks a question that changes everything. He says, "Mateo, you've been working as a janitor. Where exactly?" Mateo wipes his face with his sleeve again. "The same library. The one your father's foundation donated money to. I've worked there for 22 years. Julian's heart stops. He knows that library. He visited it once as a publicity stunt. He shook hands with the staff. He smiled for the cameras. He probably walked right past Mateo without seeing him. A brother, a stranger, a janitor. He says, "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Mateo laughs, but there's no humor in it. "Say what?" "Excuse me, Mr. Billionaire. I think I'm your long-lost brother. Can I borrow a few million?" "No, I have my pride. It's the only thing your father didn't take from me." Julian stands up. He looks at his father's grave one last time. Then he looks at Mateo, and he makes a decision. He says, "The expansion is canceled. I'll call the board tonight. Your mother stays where she is, and I'm going to put a new headstone on her grave. One that says her name. One that says she was loved." Mateo shakes his head. "I don't want your charity." Julian smiles for the first time. It's not a cruel smile. It's a sad one. This isn't charity. It's the first decent thing our father never did. Let me do it for him. What happened after that rainy night? Julian kept his word. He had Elena's grave moved to a beautiful spot in the main cemetery, not far from the Thorne family plot. He paid for a marble headstone with her name, her dates, and the words, "She raised a good man on nothing but love." Mateo didn't accept money, but he did accept dinner at Julian's house once a month. They didn't become best friends overnight. They had too much pain and too many lost years for that. But they became something. Family. Real family. Not the kind you're born into, but the kind you choose through hard conversations and ugly crying in the rain. Julian also started a small fund for janitors and maintenance workers at his companies to go back to school. No questions asked. No applications. Just a chance. He named it the Elena Fund. When people asked him why, he just said, "Because my father's greatest secret turned out to be my greatest teacher." As for Mateo, he still works as a janitor. He likes the quiet. He likes the books. But now, when he takes his lunch break, he walks across the cemetery and sits by his mother's grave. He doesn't cry anymore. He talks. He tells her about his week. He tells her about Julian. He tells her that the truth finally found its way to the surface, just like she said it would. If this story hit you in the chest the way it hit me, tap the screen right now to watch another story about secrets that refuse to stay buried.